Hello and welcome to Daily Work Remote Strategies with the coaches of Silicon Valley Change. Today we have two guests and I'm going to introduce them before giving the scope of how we'll do this. Here on our gallery view we have Doug Turner. Hi Doug.
Hey.
Awesome. And here in our gallery view we have Brian Branagan. Hi Brian.
Hi.
The reason we're doing these is that you have heard for about 3 or 4 weeks different specific things from our coaches. And so today is about putting a lot of those ideas together and answering specific questions that have come up. So here are the resources we're going to give you as we start, and here are the questions that we're going to start with. First resource is going to be that we have now put these videos, the ones that you're watching, we've put them all together into one place. So I'm going to screen share and show you this. This is mycoach.zone. So these are this is My Coach Coaching by Silicon Valley Change, mycoach.zone/work remote. Most of you have been with us to at least one other webinar other than this one. Here are all the webinars together. So if you have a team member to whom you want to send the episode on focus or the episode on Perma H that Doug ran us through, or any of the episodes, Brian's is going to be next Friday, by the way, you can come here and go to the specific episode and to the content and see some of the main bullet points. So we have put this together for you as a way of getting a big picture on everything we're talking about. So first question today, this is a question that has been coming up. People have asked this on many, many calls, and I'm asking you too as coaches, and I'll pipe in as well. Here's a situation some of our attendees have been facing. They're working at home, they're working remotely, they have things going on in the background, whether it's their spouses or their kids or their pets, and their manager is working them really hard. They do not have a chance to step back or to sort of have a roles and goals discussion with the manager at that point. So they're really clear about this. These are questions that we've gotten regularly. What can they do when they feel that not only do they have additional home responsibilities, but their work in working from home is really working them over 100%?
So now we answer that question, Senya?
That's right. And we sort of ping pong back and forth and we just see like, what are our top of mind suggestions for these people?
Yeah. Well, my top of mind suggestion is that you can only commit to what you can do. So the boss probably does have a lot of work that needs to be accomplished. So it would be good. I like to use agile work practices. One method particularly is Scrum, which is having a very visible list using something like Trello, which is an online collaboration tool that has 3 boards or 3 columns: work to be done, work being done, work done. So the boss fills up the work to be done. And each time each members of the team take a work element from the work to be done board and puts it into the working on column. So that way, you can say, okay, I'm working on this. Here's when it's going to be done. And when that's done, let's talk about the next element from the work to be done board. So you're only focusing on work to be done now. So that's what I would like to do, using something like Trello, so that at least you can get a 500 feet view on a work schedule over the course of a week.
Kind of a project management approach.
Yeah, right.
Verify and prioritize. Senya, off the top of my head, when you asked that question, my first thought was take a step back and kind of rethink your reaction to that. Because what you talked about was stress inducing and got all this stuff going on. But I wonder if it's possible in some cases to step back and think, this is an opportunity. And I've always heard, you know, if you want to get something done, give it to someone who's busy because they'll figure it out and they'll work with the tools that Brian was talking about and other things to get it done. So I wonder if we could step back in that moment of anxiety or stress and think, what's the opportunity here? And then I always like, in terms of a little mind map, or what some people call Eisenhower's matrix. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but it's the concept of defining what's important versus what's urgent, and kind of get a read, maybe working with your manager to help define, you know, is this a crisis we need to do now, or is there something important, and kind of get a gauge on how urgent and how important, and see how that plays out. So it gives you an idea of where to start and where to then spend some additional time.
Yeah.
But flipping that anxiety into a potential opportunity might be some place to at least get in a better set. Yeah, there we go. Good, Stania. So.
Yeah, just to put something up here from what I just went to Google Images, but these, what's important and what's urgent.
Wow, no shortage of versions of that, is there? So,
That's
And
true,
see,
right?
and that's a great way to sort the backlog of work to be done in the Trello board. So
yeah, and
the other thing is
obviously
in the Trello.
Can you say
I'm
more
sorry,
about
Brian,
that, about how to use, Brian, could you add more about that, please? So how you just described to us the 3 columns of a Trello board, which is work to be done, working on, and done. Can you describe how to incorporate this Eisenhower matrix on importance and urgency?
Well, I'm going to ping pong back and forth with Doug here. So every item where there's a request for work to be done, you could use the Eisenhower matrix to say, okay, who's asking for this work? Is it an urgent need for them, or is it something really important that the VP of the division is asking for? So that's, and this can be a conversation between the work team and the boss, where, because you have to actually have a conversation about the request so that the work items can be done within a time frame of about a week.
Yeah.
So,
good.
You have to break up the items. Okay, yes, this is important. Now, how do we break it up into smaller things so it's actionable? So, how does that sound to you?
I just wanted to add,
else on?
For those that may not be familiar with this Eisenhower concept or matrix concept, I think ultimately the goal, or the desire, is to move into things that are important but not urgent, because those easily fall off the to-do list, and we're putting out fires, which is the urgent and maybe sometimes not important. But that kind of has a sense of a longer term view, to get ahead of the curve on some things by looking at the things that are important but not today urgent, because someday they'll become urgent if we don't do that. And that's kind of the tension, or the push and pull, is try to stay focused on the longer term so that we can manage the short term. Starts to the short-term crisis management starts to decrease, and we're getting ahead of the curve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so as part of what you're saying, Doug, that as you're having discussions with your manager, try to really do those things that are important, and try to, even when your manager gives you important but not urgent, really sort of celebrate that in a sense. This is what you want to be working on over time.
And I think the concept can set up a nice conversation with your manager to say, and because you're listening to him or her and saying, what's important to you? What's urgent to you? And help me help you, by addressing the things that are important and urgent to you. And that gives you an idea of where to prioritize these things.
anything else that we've missed, either Doug or Brian, as this person comes in, your manager, and says to you, hey, these are really important and it's a lot and you have to do it. And just like Doug said at the beginning, you might have a stress response, as all of us do just in describing that. How do you calm that? How do you, as Brian was saying, isolate it and figure it out, whether it's the Trello board or the Eisenhower, anything to add. And sorry, as I'm asking that question, from our attendees, if you have iterations on this question, I'll move on to the next and a second question, but if you have iterations, please type them in so we can address them while we're talking about this. Brian, other things to add here?
Well, a book that I would really recommend is Jeff Sutherland's book on Scrum, and it's I think it's titled "Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time." So that would certainly appeal to bosses that want to get a lot of work done, but then they have to then understand that they're going to be part of a conversation about prioritizing the work in the work to be done board, and then allowing you the time that you need to do the work that you said you were going to do in the week that you said you were going to do it. And those are important conversations to have.
Yeah. My only thought, Sonia, I thought to add is to maybe think about using this concept of the Eisenhower matrix and the Trello tool that Brian was talking about, to turn around and have these similar conversations with the family, the stuff around you in the background. Someone told me once that unless someone's bleeding or there's a fire, it's not an emergency. So maybe these kinds of similar conversations with the environment or context that you're in now, working from home perhaps, might be worthwhile too, to understand what's urgent and what's important.
And one last plug for Scrum is that I know working parents who have Scrum boards for the family, for chores, for homework.
Perfect.
And they stand around the board, every morning, and they take little items from the work to be done and put it in the done or doing, and then they celebrate in the evening when things move from doing to done.
We started that because I read a LinkedIn article on incorporating Kanban into your family. So we have things like the cello practice and the piano practice in there as well. So they move them forward. And my son starts with his first to do is hug. So he'll put that in the doing. He'll walk around and hug his sister and me. And then he'll put it in the done and he'll go out to the
Yes.
You feel like you're accomplishing stuff.
I said to him, okay, it's time to hop online. You have your first call. He's like, all right, well, I have to do the first thing. Here you go. It gets moved over.
Perfect.
Oh my, yep.
Thank you so much. So that is one question that we've had. Here's a second question that we've had come up, and I will share my screen just to type up a few notes that I started. In the time that we have, I'm doing dots instead of notes. In the time that we've been doing these sessions, here are the main things that have come up. How do I connect with people, both colleagues, but not only colleagues? What can I do for myself? What can I do for my team? And what can I do for my family? So these have been big themes in the sessions that we've offered people over the past few weeks. So my question today is a specific question around connecting. And my question to both of you is, a few of the coaches on these sessions have said, hey, don't get overworked with work. Don't only focus on work, and actually also figure out where you can pepper into your day, or a term that Eileen used, sprinkle into your day, different connections with people, whether you just text someone briefly, or you say, can we have a family Zoom, or you do any of these things. So my question, that was context, is how can people balance doing those right kind of reaching out and connections with work? So beyond your regular Zoom meetings that you have for work, those informal, like the water cooler moments at work, but also manage having some of these sanity kind of connections with people that matter to you, because now it sort of turns almost into a to-do. So how can people connect without it feeling like another weight? Let me go to Doug first.
Well, my again, my initial thought is something that I've tried to do. And again, it starts with how you perceive this to be. Is it a to-do, another chore, another task, or is it an opportunity to reconnect and to get revitalized? So in fact, just before this call, this Zoom meeting we're having here, I sent 3 quick emails to people that I went to school with years ago, that I worked with probably 10 years ago, and a friend that I had heard was out looking for work and found a job. So in 3 kind of categories or groupings of people, it took me 5-10 minutes, to do that, and sent my contact information and hoping that they'll reconnect. And I find that fun to do. And if we can connect in more detail, I love catching up with folks, and it's kind of a bit of a therapy for me. In fact, in some of the calls I have with my friends, I thank them for being part of my therapy for all of this stuff. So that's an initial thought off as I listen to the question.
So if I summarize, Doug, it's a couple of things. One is treat it as fun, treat it as impromptu, do what comes into your head, treat it as fun. And then your second point is a little more about actually enjoy the longer interactions if they happen. So you can do the reach outs, but if they reach back out, actually enjoy those connections.
Yeah, think of it as recess from school.
Frame it as recess.
Yeah.
Brian?
Well, what comes to mind for me is I had a group of guys that I would have breakfast with every Saturday morning. And we just can't go to the diner anymore. So we've maintained like a Saturday get together by Zoom.
Do you all have breakfast?
Well, some of us just have coffee, but it's maintaining it. And so what I recommend is people really take a moment to look at and map out who are the people that they care about and they have connections to. So family, of course, and they're right there with you. But there are family members who live in different parts of the country, so you have to schedule that. And I really like the idea of reminiscing about why they were important. So maybe, we've all heard about the importance of having a gratitude list about the 3 most important things you're grateful for at the end of the day. But maybe take a look at creating a gratitude list of why you're grateful that those people are in your life. And what are the memories that you have with them that you can recall? And then, I do believe that you can energetically create in your body the same sense of satisfaction that you had when you recall those memories. So even if you can't call them in that moment, you can, that was a great time when we went fishing. So, and I know you study positive psychology, Sing, and so there's a whole body of work around satisfaction, and where reminiscing is a key piece. So you can reminisce with them. Hey, do you remember? So maybe that's something you could share a little bit about.
A little bit about savoring, Brian. I think that's
savoring. That's it. That's the term, savoring. Yeah.
And while you were talking, Brian, I just got an email from my old friend that I went to school with, Senya. You know her. so yeah. Looking forward to that.
Savoring the moment, or making moments to reminisce.
Savoring, gratitude for what you've had with them, reminiscing, a lot of these positive concepts. I think the practical way of what you're saying. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, and it's just, and then in the time that you are savoring and grateful, reach out, because you can recreate that moment with them.
Yeah, you're saying, so if you're suddenly working at your desk and you remember a friend, don't just kind of, I'll write to them in 2 days, but actually do that quick reach out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you both know, I love doing action steps. So if I summarize the Doug and the Brian action steps, it sounds like when you're thinking of someone, email them. And Brian saying, and remind them of something specific. I loved when we did this, or this came to mind. I'm thinking of you. How are you doing right now? But this specific thing, because that, even if they don't reply to you for days, that'll probably put a smile on their face right away.
Or at least take a step towards that connection. Sometimes, like some of my old friends and people, I don't even have their current email. So it takes a little research sometimes. But I'm kind of very structured and organized in things. So I just went to my LinkedIn. I have over 1,500 connections on LinkedIn. Some of them I frankly don't remember who they are, but I just sort of methodically go through them and think, oh yeah, that I remembered. I haven't talked to him or her for a long time, and I start there and move forward.
Yeah, and if you don't have time to email, just write their name down, and then when you're in a break,
text, email,
or just think about them, recall the memory, write that down, and then have the call later.
Yeah. And I really believe that doing that, Brian, what like you were talking about, it energizes you a little bit. And that's the purpose of recess, right? Is to go out, get energy and go back out. And it's wonderful. So I've enjoyed it.
I will close our talk by saying that we've talked about two issues. One issue is, what do you do when you're overstressed and your manager appears to be giving you just a lot, more than 100%? And the second topic is, when we know the benefits of connecting and reaching out, but how can we do that without it feeling like a task, so it feels enjoyable and like recess? I would like to ask both Brian and Doug for just a one takeaway idea. It could be about these two topics, or it could be for something for people to think about today as they go into the weekend. Anything that you would like to leave our session with?
Well, if I may, Brian, jump in here. I think it's kind of what sort of a theme that I hear as we talk today, and that is, when things come at you that are anxiety producing or stressful, challenge your thinking and reframe that in a way that, how could this be an opportunity? How could this be beneficial? How could this be? And even if it isn't, I think that just the challenge of that changes the perspective of everything and can put it in a much more creative, productive space there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my takeaway is just sort of recognizing that we're always connected, always connected to the people we care about, even if it's just in the moment of thinking about them. And then we can use those moments to set up how we want to actually reach out to them. So that the thing of like, we're alone, we're disconnected, I think that's a lie. We're already always connected.
Brian taking a hard stance here.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation is a great example of that, Brian. I mean, Senya's in California. I'm in the mountains of Utah. You're on the east, or no, you're up in Washington, right?
Yeah.
Washington State. And it feels wonderful, to be connected here today. Doug Turner, Brian Branagan, thank you both so much. Thank you for the session today on answering questions that we have had over the past few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you, everyone. All the best. See you again next week, 11 a.m. Pacific, every day for 20 minutes. All the best. Be well. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you both. I'm going to be posting the link for people and sending it out again in terms of the schedule for next week.